Mesachas Megillah daf chof. The Gemara learns out from a pasuk that the chiuv Milah is specifically biyom and not b'layla. Taisus asks, since mitzvahs Milah is specifically biyom, why do you need a pasuk to remind noshim from mitzvahs Milah? In the Gemara in Kedushin daf chof test, typically that's considered mitzvahs to say shazman grama because Milah is specifically biyom. And Taisus says to Tirutzim that since Milah was nichrasu Allah yud gimel brisa, so therefore you think nashim achayiv, even though it's a mitzvah zeish as man grandma. And Taisus says another teretz coming to mind Milah shloi bisman according to Mantama that noig ben biyom ben belayla. Taisus and all the Rishonim ask another kasha from the fact that Milah is bishmini, so it should be considered a mitzvah zeish as man grandma. There's a tremendous discussion in the Mefarshim about Taisus is kasha, and it's totally an icky yisoidus of the gather the mitzvahs Milah and the gather of mitzvahs asay shazman grama. The Taisus reading Kedushin says the answer to Taisus kasha is that mitzvahs Milah is not considered as man grama because the chiuv on the father, which is the preparation for the Milah, is noig bein biyom b'layla. Even at night he has to prepare for mitzvahs Milah. This Taisus read is tzorich ian gadol. Why is it different than any other mitzvah? You don't say that preparation is part of the mitzvah, and therefore it's considered a mitzvah. Says Shaloi has man grama. Ayin Sefer Pri Yitzchak has a tremendous discussion with the Beis Halevi and what together the mitzvah Milah is. The Beis Halevi is miyaseh that there's two halachas in mitzvah Milah, the Ma'aseh Milah, and that there's a chasimes bis kodesh b'besoroi, and he proves that's a continuous mitzvah. And the Pri Yitzchak says that you see from this Taisus read that the mitzvah is that the father is obligated to make sure that on Yom Shmini the son doesn't have an orla. The chiuv is not to do a ma'aseh milah. The chiuv is to make sure he doesn't have an orla. So since the ikar chiuv is not a positive mitzvah, rather to make sure there's no orla, so therefore ikar chiyuv is the hachana. So therefore even the preparation at night is also included in the mitzvah. The Ramban and the Ritvos say the answer to his kasha is that since the chiuv Milah is on the son and the father is mechuyev on the chiuv that's ramya on benoi, so therefore it's not considered a mitzvah asay shazman grama. There's two mahalchim in the achronim to explain this teretz the Rishonim. And Chuvas bin Shloim is muvor that the geder the mitzvahs Milah is that b'yisoid the son's mechuyev, and that the father's mechuyev and Milah's benoi is he's b'mokim benoi for the mitzvahs Milah. So therefore, since the ikar chiuv is the chiuv of benoi, so therefore, who didn't you think that the mother's mechuyev to make sure it's niskayim the chiuv that's mutal on her son? They brought in Shurim and Shabbos daf nun dalet that's mavur different mahalach that's mavur the Rishonim and you say that the gather of mitzvahs and grandma that noshim apart is only when it's a chiuv that's ramya kakafte the gavra. However, over here, since it's not ramya kakafte the gavra, it's a chiuv that's b'mnoit al yemilsa, so therefore it doesn't pertain to halacha of mitzvahs as and grandma noshim pluris, and therefore the Mechaschinach compares these Rishonim to the halacha shvisas behemtei v'ayin sham. In stencils, it says that biyom hashmini it's not considered as man grama because the din of Yom Hashmini is not a loch in the zman of Yom Hashmini, rather it's a din in the child that a ben shminas yomim is mechuyev lomo b'sar los. It's a din in the status of the child, and it's not the zman that was mechayev in the mitzvah. Therefore, it's not considered a mitzvah asay shazman grama. In the Ikar Chiddush that Reb Chaim is saying that a mitzvah that the zman's not mechayiv, a specific zman is not considered as zman grama tzorchian. For Gemara in Brachas daf chof that has a haomer of the birchas hamazon, it's considered a mitzvah seish as zman grama. Since normally people eat in the morning and the afternoon, therefore it should be considered a mitzvah seish as zman grama. So according to Mars haomer akolchuch, there's no zman that's mechayiv birchas hamazon. It happens to be people eat in the morning and the afternoon, and nevertheless it's considered as my grandma, and that the Gemara falls off from it. The Gemara is not falling off and changing the ikar gather of mitzvahs asay as my grandma. The Marit in Chedushim Kedushin says that the Milah is biyom hashmini. Dafka biyom and not belayla is not considered as my grandma because the mitzvahs Milah is even belayla, because belayla as well, since your child was mal, he therefore is mutter to eat kodshim and mutter to eat shumah. So therefore, it's not considered as mangrama because in the Marit, like the Chiddush and the Beis Halevi mentioned before, that the key mitzvah of mitzvahs Milah is not the Meis Milah at Yom Shmini. Rather, it's a kseidik key mitzvah with that it's chosim b'besor bris kodesh. So therefore, that it continues biyom b'layla. So therefore, it's not considered as mangrama. I understand from Avodah Zarah we explained in two mahalchim to explain the cholkim of the Marit, either arguing together mitzvahs Milah that they hold that the mitzvahs Milah is the Ma'aseh Milah, not the chasimus bis kodesh like the Beis Halevi, or the argument together of mitzvahs aseish as mangrama. The b'emes shlachkor is mitzvahs aseish as mangrama totally in the chiuv of the gavra in the mitzvah. If the gavra is chiuv in the mitzvah is mangrama, it's considered as mangrama. Or it's totally in the cheftza of the chashivas of the mitzvah. So Meritz Mavur, that's totally in the cheftza of the chashivas of the mitzvah, and since the mitzvah is continuous on the gavra that he has chaschimas bis kodesh b'sarai, even though the father is mechuyev to do a ma'aseh mitzvah biyom shmini, nevertheless it's considered ein hazman grama. But could be the cholkim hold that's totally in the chiuv of the gavra, that if the chiuv of the gavra is bizman grama, therefore it's considered mitzvah seish as man grama. And it could be it's totally in the timing of his man grama, the nashma potter. The Vajram says that since the ish is mishubedes the Bible, therefore she's potter from his man grama. So it could be it's totally in the chiuv of the gavra. However, the Yeshua says the Yisod of Torah mitzvah sheish mangrama is because Allah has mangrama is choshev because it's toder. So it could be according to Bnei Yeshua, it's totally in the etzim chashivas of the chefs of the mitzvah va'ayin shah. Moving further on, Taisis and Amid Beis brings the sheet of the Bahag, which is brought in Halach and Shulchan Aruch. If someone forgets to count the night and the day of Sefirat haomer, he can't continue to count. However, if he gets just the night, he can count the next day without a bracha. There's two mahalchim and achronim to explain the sheet of the Bahag that says that if you forget one day of Sefirat haomer, you cannot continue counting. The Briskerov says the understanding is that the Bahag learns it's one big mitzvah. All of the days of Sefirat haomer is one mitzvah, so therefore if you miss part of it, you can't continue counting. And the Briskerov explained, even though it's one mitzvah, nevertheless you make a bracha on every day because birchas mitzvah is not totally in the kiyah mitzvah, rather than the ma'aseh mitzvah. And each day has its own independent ma'aseh mitzvah, so therefore it's mechayev a bracha b'fnei atzmai. I understand for Yerech L'Meyadim from B'chum Olshen Shlita, there's a riches to prove a different mahalach in the understanding of the Bahag. And he says the Mavur in the Trumas Hadesh, and that even though each day is an independent mitzvah, nevertheless the Bahag holds that if you miss one day, you can't continue counting. And the understanding is that you need a sphere of Timimot, and if you miss an entire day and night, so you don't have a sphere of Timimot, and therefore you can't continue counting. And it says B'emes is Mavur in the poskim that if you count by day without a bracha, you could continue counting. And the Shartzin explains why is it that you could continue counting. Because it's a sveka. That means there's a shittas showing them that even if you forget a day, you could continue counting with a bracha. And there are shittas that hold that if you don't count at night and you count by day, you yetz dechivase. So therefore it's a sveka and you continue counting. But the Rebbe Olshen asked that Bahag himself is Mavur, not like that, because he wasn't choishes for all the shittas, and nevertheless he holds you can continue counting with the bracha. So he explains the understanding is that even though that according to the Bahag, each day is an independent mitzvah, but there's a halacha in the mitzvah of Sefirat haomer that has to be a sefira of Sheba Shabbos Timimis Tiyana. So therefore, if you miss a day, you're missing the ma'aseh sefira of Sheba Shabbos Timimis, and therefore you can't continue counting. However, if you miss at night, and you count the next day, although you're missing in the Ma'aseh mitzvah of that day, or you're not mekayim the mitzvah b'chlal b'hamiyas, you did a sefirat on that day, so therefore it's considered a counting of Shavuot Shabbos as Timimot, and therefore you can continue counting. And it brings another raya that the Meretz Geius asked the Kasha according to Bahag that one day of sefirat is ma'akim says. He asked why isn't the halacha sefirat haomer mentioned the Mishnah where other mitzvahs that are ma'akim says. He says the answer is that according to this Yisod it's miyoshev heitiv, because the Mishnah is referring to dafka dvarim that Amakron says that are one mitzvah, like daled minim shebelulav, or 4 tzitzis, that's one mitzvah. However, according to this mahalach, even the Bahag agrees, each day is an independent mitzvah, rather as a tanai you need Timimot, so therefore it's not muska b'chlal dvarim Amakron says that. And another raya brings, the Bialacha brings a Shitas Rishonim that argues in the Bahag that says even if you miss a day, you could continue counting, but when you continue counting, you have to say Esmoel was kach v'kach lo'imeh, and now you continue counting with a bracha. And Tzorchin, why do you have to say Esmoel was kach v'kach? If you missed yesterday, why do you have to say today the Esmoel was kach v'kach? But according to Anal, it's Miyoshev Heitiv, because there's halacha, you need a sphere of Timimot. According to those Rishonim, it's not ma'akiv if you miss a day, but hamiyas, you need a sphere of Timimot, and you can miskayim the mitzvah of Timimot by saying Esma was kach v'kach lo'imeh v'ayin sham v'arichas gedoleh b'zeh.